Greetings to everybody watching this video. I'm Srishti Hegde. I'm an occupational therapist. I finished my undergraduation from Manipal Academy of Higher Education in Jan 2020, and I'm currently working with All India Institute of Speech and Hearing in Mysore. Bear with me as I share the screen. When I was approached to make a presentation about the overall concept of health, um, as an occupational therapist, the first term that came into my mind was quality of life. So here's my attempt to sort of help you understand the term quality of life and also probably suggest a few ways in which you could improve your quality of life. But before I get into the depths of that, I'd like to explain a few terms. The first term we have to understand is the term health itself. Uh, Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. The fact that WHO wrote this definition back in 1948 and it's not been changed since is because of how well it resonates with various professions and the kind of emphasis it places on the fact that it is health is not just the absence of diseases, injuries, illnesses, or disabilities, but a term that includes the physical, mental, and social well being of the individual. Now that we have used the term well being, let us understand it. Well being is a general term encompassing the total universe of human life domains, including physical, mental, and social aspects. It can also be defined as the contentment with one's health, self esteem, sense of belonging, security, and opportunities for self determination, meaning, roles, and helping others. Summarizing this, I can say that well being is a term that sort of describes the kind of comfort or happiness one feels with regard to the various facets of life. The third term is very important for us to understand because it is going to be repeated all over this presentation. Occupations. Occupations are generally those activities that we understand help us to earn a living. But for occupational therapists, and in context of this video, occupations are those everyday activities that people do as individuals in families and with communities to occupy time and bring meaning and purpose to life. Occupations include things people need to do, want to do, and are expected to do. I really want you to pay attention to the second sentence of this definition that says occupations include things people need to do, want to do, and are expected to do. In my life, I'm expected to work. I need to cook. I need to clean my house. I want to watch a movie. I want to visit the zoo. So, I'm sure that if you try to analyze your life, you will also be able to list activities under those you need to do, those you want to do, and those you are expected to do. Occupations can be broadly divided into three categories. The first one is self care, which includes activities such as bathing, dressing, grooming, or taking medications that you do to take care of your body. The second category is productivity, which doesn't really only talk about activities we do to earn a living, but also talks about activities that have a productive outcome for society. It could also be volunteering. The third category is that of leisure. Leisure activities are those that we do to relax or to unwind from the daily stresses of life. These could be your hobbies. So, occupational balance is a term that says is the relative balance between the three occupational performance areas of self care, productivity, and leisure. This balance is influenced by the values of the individual, their culture, and their environment. When we think about India, our population really depends on their jobs because we're a developing country. As a culture, we sort of place more value towards work occupations rather than leisure occupations, which is why we have a very vague understanding of leisures. A lot of us cannot even identify hobbies of our own. This is also because we have been given very little opportunity to explore leisure occupations. Once we have understood the term occupational balance, it is very easy for us to understand the term occupational imbalance. It is the excessive time spent in one area, usually work, at the expense of the other, usually leisure, which might aggravate health and quality of life. At this juncture, I'd like to ask you if you have come across the term work life balance. The term work life balance seems to be very close or very similar to the term occupational balance, but they are not the same. When we use the term work life balance, it seems to suggest that work is of a higher priority or of greater weightage than other activities of life, such as self care and leisure. Providing work with that sort of priority or giving work so much weightage sort of makes life imbalanced or makes the routine imbalanced, and thus the term work life balance will definitely not equate to occupational balance. Imbalance may arise when there is a conflict between an obligatory occupation and a valued occupation. What is an obligatory occupation? Obligatory occupations are those that you need to continue doing because certain aspects of your life depend on them. If I'm the breadwinner for my family and my job feeds four others in my family, then my job becomes an obligatory occupation. If my job takes up most of my day and I have very little time to do the occupations that I value, then there's a clear imbalance because of the kind of time I spend on my obligatory occupation as compared to the kind of time I spend on my valued occupation. There are several factors that affect the performance of occupations. The first and very obvious reason, or the first and very obvious barrier to performance of occupations, is injury or illness. You can imagine that if I hurt my wrist, it will be very hard for me to write or type. So it will be very hard for me to make notes in class. The second factor that affects performance of occupation is a disrupted routine or the unequal distribution of time. Like I said, if my job takes up so much of my day or week that I have no time left to take part in my hobbies, then the unequal distribution of my time and the fact that my job takes so much of my time sort of hinders with my performance of occupations which I value, like my hobbies. It could also be because of a disrupted routine. Last year, when we were faced with the lockdown because of the pandemic, we realized that we were suddenly all bound to home and we started working from home and we sort of started saving time on transportation. But there were so many other activities that got added on to our routine because we were staying at home. And suddenly, our routine looked so different that we took some time to get used to the new change in time and the new change in the occupations we were doing. The third factor that affects performance of occupations is the loss or change of roles. What are roles? As an individual, all of us play multiple roles in our lives. I'm a daughter to my parents. I'm a sister to my brother. I'm a family member. I'm a friend. I'm an employee. I'm a religious participant. I'm a volunteer. I'm also a teacher or facilitator for y'all. Our roles really define the kinds of occupations we do, which is why when there's suddenly a loss of role, for example, if I am to retire tomorrow, then it could really affect the kind of routine I have because suddenly the occupations that were related to my job are no longer there. The fact that a change of role can also sort of affect my occupation or the kind of or the way I perform my occupation is true because when I moved to being an employee from being a student, I faced a lot of difficulties because suddenly the occupations that were related to being a student were no longer there, but there were new occupations that were there which were related to being an employee. And it took me some time to get used to those or to make that transition from being a student to an employee. The fourth factor that affects performance of occupations is the change in environment or context. The environment is not just the physical environment, but also the social environment. When someone finishes school and goes to college, there's a change not only in their physical environment, but also in their social environment. This could affect how they perform their activities. If they move to a new city, a lot of their activities could be changed or modified. For example, when I moved to Mysore from Bangalore, for the first few weeks, I couldn't exercise because I couldn't find a suitable park to jog in. The environment can also be restricting or limiting. If I'm someone who is wheelchair bound, if I move schools and my new school has no ramps for my easy access to the canteen or to my classroom, then it really restricts my participation in activities. One of the last factors that hinders with performance of occupations is the wrong choice of occupation. Maybe there's a mismatch between the occupation and your skill set. Maybe you're underqualified and do not possess adequate skill sets required for the activity at hand, which is why the activity is way too challenging for you to do well. Or maybe you are overqualified for the occupation. So the activity is not motivating enough or not challenging enough for you to do well. All occupations stem from an innate need and values of individuals and their communities. Like I said, our roles, our values, and our needs define the occupations we do. Disengagement from occupations leaves behind a void of unmet needs. Like I said, when we suddenly lose out on a role, we lose out on the occupations that are related to that role. And that is why it leaves behind a void of unmet needs. For example, if I'm a team leader for a certain project, and being the team leader and guiding my peers gives me the sense of validation and boosts my confidence, then the day I stop being a team leader, I'll feel a sense of void or emptiness because there are no longer activities that give me the same sort of validation, or there are no longer activities that boost my confidence in the same way. Not all occupations contribute to positive health, such as consuming alcohol or smoking cigarettes, binge eating, substance abuse, self harm, or getting addicted to social media. Thus, these cannot be stopped abruptly but need to be replaced. For example, if I'm addicted to social media for my social interaction, then the day I decide to let go of this addiction, I will have to first find an activity that fulfills my need to interact socially and makes up for the needs that was being previously met by my interaction on social media. So I'll probably have to join a cooking class with my peers where I can interact with them and participate in an activity that I like to make up for the social interaction that I was previously gaining on social media. These replaced occupations might be new and where the person needs to learn new skills, or they might fulfill similar needs and be aimed at achieving the same outcome but with a different approach. Factors that hinder occupational performance can be classified into three major categories. The first category is the person factors, which include the body and its functions, like I said, age, injury, illness, etc. They can also include specific skill deficits. As every individual is different, their habits, roles, and routines also influence occupational performance. The second category is environment and context. Environment is made up of not only physical things but also the people around you. So if you live in a house where your roommates really don't accept you for who you are, or don't value the things you do, or value your activities or your interests, maybe moving out of that home and moving into a house which has people who really value you as a person, accept you for who you are, and sort of value the activities you do and your interests, can give you the confidence to participate in these activities, or make it possible for you to actually participate in these activities in the first place. The third category is the occupation itself. Like I said, you could be either underqualified or overqualified for this occupation, and you'll have to accordingly make the task more challenging or less challenging according to your need. Other than the direct barriers that are in the way of performance of activities, there are two other things that influence our performance of activities, which are expectation and satisfaction. For example, if I am to give an exam and I expect to score 95 marks and I score 82 marks, my satisfaction is well beneath my expectation, which means that I will not be happy with my performance and I'd like to try again. But given the scenario that I score 98 marks while I expected to score only 94 or 95, my satisfaction is well exceeding my expectation and I'll be happy with my performance. We need to understand that expectation is not always internal, it is also societal expectations or familial expectations. Satisfaction, similarly, also is on part of society or on part of your family. So, given the scenario that the satisfaction meets expectations or satisfaction exceeds expectations, that is when your performance would feel more successful. Finally, coming to the term quality of life. What is the term quality of life? A quality of life is the individual's perception of their position in life in the context of the culture and value systems in which they live in, and in relation to their goals, expectations, standards, and concerns. Quality of life is a subjective term. There is research that suggests that people who are able to do their occupations independently and successfully report a higher uh, index of quality of life. But there is also research that suggests that people with terminal illnesses who are unable to perform their activities independently might also report a good quality of life. So it really depends on what you value and sort of what you prioritize or how you see life and how you see fit. Quality of life is also a multidimensional term which encompasses various domains of an individual's life. Like we saw, health includes the physical, emotional, social, psychological well being of a person's life. So, quality of life encompasses all of that and also includes the environment, the context of the activities. It also includes the performance of activities and the expectations and satisfaction. All of these together sort of result in a certain level of quality of life. So, how would balancing your occupation or paying attention to the barriers in your performance help you achieve a better quality of life? Striking a balance in one's routine, paying attention to the barriers that hinder one's performance, and working towards eliminating or reducing them will ensure the individual's participation in occupations that they want to do, need to do, or are expected to do. It will improve or enhance the performance of that particular occupation. It will prevent burnout. It will also establish positive health and a sense of well being, confidence, and self esteem. It will increase role competence. And by that, I mean that it will increase your confidence at performing your roles or performing the occupations that are related to your role. Achieving these will thus improve one's quality of life. I'd like to I'd like you to take a minute to reflect and introspect. You may feel free to pause the video here. Think about your routine about the amount of time you spend on self care, productivity, and leisure. Is it balanced? Do you have enough time to do the things you like? If you aren't doing certain occupations or are not satisfied with your performance, identify what it is that is acting as a barrier to your performance. What is it that you can do to change the situation? Can you build on your skills? Can you modify your routine? Can you adapt the environment to your needs? Or is it time to change the activity? Analyzing one's occupations can be a very tedious task. Believe me, I understand. But starting to analyze them allows you to learn a lot about yourself and your values and your life goals. Achieving a balance is a dynamic process and ever changing according to context and circumstance. It is not something that once achieved will remain unchanged. So, every time there's a change in your environment, every time there's a change in your occupations, every time there's a change in your role, you'll have to strike a new balance. I'd like to end this video by sharing with you a fun way to make a routine. Dr. Bruce has thought about this concept of chronotypes. Chronotypes are categories of um, people based on their sleep patterns and the kind of energy level they experience during the day. Chronotypes have been given the names of four animals, namely the dolphin, the lion, the wolf, and the bear. These animals have their own characteristics. I have added a link for you to read more about chronotypes and a link where you can take up a quiz that helps you determine your chronotype. Analyzing your sleep pattern will help you know what kind of sleeper you are, and that way you'll know if you're an early riser or you do better in the evenings. What part of the day do you feel more productive? This will help you prioritize your activities in such a way that you put the activities that need a lot of your attention or a lot of your energy during the times of the day where you feel more active and alert. Then you can prioritize activities that really do not require that much of your attention towards the times of the day where you feel low or lethargic. This will help you schedule activities that need most of your attention or energy during the hours you feel most energetic. The first link is the one you can go and the first link really um, is the one where you can read more about the chronotypes, whereas the second link is where you can take up a quiz to determine what kind of animal or chronotype you are. You can also read the article Occupational Balance, exploring the relationships among daily occupations and their influence on well being, and by Kathleen L. Backman, which came in 2004. But the OTPF third edition might be a little too much information for someone who's not in the field. I'd be more than happy to answer your doubts if you have any when we have a one to one session. I hope this presentation has helped you think about quality of life or has helped you think about the occupations that you do in the day and whether or not you have achieved some sort of balance in them. Feel free to ask me doubts when we have the opportunity to do so. Thank you.